All right, so I am running the power wire for the fuel pump. I ended up finding a body plug missing under the car, as you can see right there. So I'm gonna just fish the wire through there, and what I'm gonna do basically is I'm gonna pull it through the carpet here, and I'm just gonna run it under the side trim here, and then I'll go over probably, and then through the firewall. I'm just gonna install a toggle switch to turn the fuel pump on and off. All right, so I was looking at the fuse box. I'm basically was trying to tap into some accessory power to hook up a switch here for the electric fuel pump, and unfortunately all three terminals for the accessories were not working. I checked the fuses, everything's fine. So what I ended up doing is I pulled out the circuit connector for the courtesy lights, and I just powered this up to it. So this is just temporary until I figure out what else to do, but this should work fine. I'm not planning on driving this car at night. I'm just trying to drive it up and down the street for now. I picked up a fuel sending unit with the float for the gas tank. So let me get this thing opened up. Just want to show you guys here. Big box for this little box. Box in a box. All right, let's see what we got here. Wow. Looks like a really nice unit here. Check it out. Looks good. I believe this is stainless steel. All right, I'm gonna get the fuel sending unit installed. Just gotta get this put in there. All right. Pretty straightforward. It's not, I'm gonna have to compare it. So when you get new parts, you always want to compare them with the old ones. Because sometimes things just don't line up. So I should have actually done this before I pulled this out, put this in. But let's compare here and see how we look. Yep, I'm gonna have to, you see that? As you can tell the difference there. This new one bends down a little more. So I'm gonna have to bend this pipe here to get it to work. Hopefully that doesn't mess anything up. I don't see it because this is just pulling the fuel in. So I'm glad I saved this. All right, I muscled it on my vise right here. Just put it on the vise and kind of just use my weight to pull back on it. And I was able to get it bent enough. It's not as, you know, perfect as this as far as the angle, but I got it enough to where it's just going to fit in the tank. So I test fit it real quick, just trial and error, bending it, sticking it in there, pulling it out, bending it a little more. Although I love this is stainless steel, you know, if this was just a regular, you know, steel, it would have been real easy. It would have been simple to fix. So let's get this float in there. So you want to kind of get the float in first. Right. Rubber gasket there. Awesome. So I mean, this literally just barely fits, seriously. Let's see. Got those in there. And I could probably tap this in. Yep. Got that started, and then I'll get a screwdriver on here, and I should be able to tap the rest on. So this one has like a ground wire coming off. I'm gonna have to just make my own coming off of here. Shouldn't be a big deal. Okay. Getting ready to install the gas tank. You see I got it set on the ground here. What I'm gonna have to do basically is figure something out with this fuel hose for the electric fuel pump. Obviously I have to route it to, you can see in the gas tank right over there, I gotta route it to that. So I'm gonna try to keep enough slack so I can pull the tank down next time. So I'm gonna see if I'm allowed to have this much slack, if I'm able to tuck it under there. So I'm gonna cut the hose right here. And this way, you know, when I drop the tank again, I can drop it all the way down without worrying about this hose. So this may or may not work, but you know, you don't know unless you try it. Fuel spilling. This is pretty much all trial and error here. Get these straps in. All right, so we got the tank up. I had to get my son to help me. It's a two-man job if you're working on the ground, because the filler tube, I guess you would call it, that it actually goes into the tank. So you've got to get the tank pushed into that, all while you're kind of straddling it, balancing it, all while you're trying to get the rods for the strap put on and get the straps also hooked in here on the body itself. So that was a little bit of a challenge. There's a canister line for venting of the fuel tank that had to get connected to, so I had to connect that. It's up on the top. I also had to connect the fuel sending wire for the gauge. The only thing is, just a little thing I got to figure out is on this side where the fuel pump is, I got to cinch up the fuel line because it's really close to the exhaust pipe. So I'll bring the camera around there and show you. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. You see the fuel line here? You can see the fuel pump right there, and then the gas tank. And now the gas tank isn't raised all the way up yet, so I have to do that. But you can see how close the fuel line is here to the exhaust pipe. So that's definitely a fire hazard. So I've got to figure something out with this. I'm going to get it cinched up, then I'll show you guys what I came up with. Okay, so here's the idea I came up with. I ended up putting a wire tie right here to the sending unit outlet coming out of the fuel tank, and that was able to basically cinch the fuel line and keep it up close to the top of the gas tank here, so it's not near the exhaust pipe like you see. This is the exhaust pipe. So that's my MacGyver tribute for now, and on to the next task. All right, got the gas tank in, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some gas in it and see if we can get this thing started. Great, got these new you got these new gas cans. They got all these safety features. Not sure how that works. Actually, I don't think this is even working. All right, I had to get a smaller gas can. I just bought that new gas can with the stupid safety features. I have no idea how you're supposed to put gas in a car. Obviously, that's probably made for like a motorcycle or something, but trying to put it in an old school car like this, not gonna happen. So you can see that I got a toggle switch installed here, and I had to hook it directly to the battery because the auxiliary power on the fuse block is not working. What I actually did is I pulled the terminal off of the dome courtesy light circuit, and I was going to use that, and it worked one time and then it stopped working, so that's probably burned up as well. But here's something I wanted to show you all. You know, of course, the fuel pump's grounded on the frame, so I just ran a hot wire to the battery. But one thing that's critical, if you're ever running anything directly to a battery, you need to have a fuse. All right, today's the big day. I'm gonna see if this car will pull out of my garage. So as you've seen, we got the brakes working on this thing. I got the gas tank put back. I hooked up the electric fuel pump. I ended up having to hook it up to the battery because the auxiliary power on the fuse block is non-operable. So I put it on a toggle switch. I put some additional transmission fluid in it since it was low. Got the drive line put back in the car. So next step is to get this thing started, and let's see if we can pull it out of the garage. Okay, before I get the car out of the garage, one thing that I forgot to check is to see if the alternator is charging the battery. I suspect it's not because my battery died recently when I was trying to get things dialed in, and I had to charge it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it up, and basically I checked the battery already. It's charged up. I got 12.69 volts right now. So gonna start it up. If the alternator is working, then I should have about 14 volts, give or take. So if it's not working at all, then obviously it's not going to change. If I have a bad voltage regulator, it's going to be more than 14 volts. So I forget, it's like 14.5 or something like that is okay, but anything higher than that, I'm drawing a blank on it, but we're just doing general checking right now. So let me get this thing started up. Looks like the alternator's dead. So it is what it is. Let's see if this thing will pull out of the garage. And if it does, then that's good news. But then I got to switch to replacing the alternator. tried. Looks like the transmission is dead. So that's the next thing to do, is we're gonna look at the transmission. I'm gonna check the linkage to make sure it's all hooked up. If the linkage is hooked up, then I know we gotta just drop the transmission and have it worked on. Okay, so I'm looking at the linkage now. Looks like it's hooked up. We're just gonna double check. I've got my boy in there who's gonna check it. Okay, go ahead and put it in drive. Okay. All right, go ahead and put it in park. Okay, so it looks like the linkage is all hooked up. So next thing is to double check the fluid to see where we're at. There's a possibility that the torque converter is empty from sitting all these years. So I'm going to check the transmission fluid. So I checked the transmission fluid and it was not even registering on this dipstick. So I went ahead and filled up what else I went ahead and finished up a bottle that I had. I went and picked up a few more bottles of transmission fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up, put it in neutral, and then I'm going to put some more transmission fluid in it, and then we should be good. I think what happened was, because I had it full already, I think what may have happened is when I put it in gear, that all of the fluid that was in the transmission went into the torque converter. So I'm going to make sure everything's topped off, and then let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Step on the brake and put it in neutral. So it looks like we have enough transmission fluid for this thing to start moving now. So let's see if we can get it out of the garage. Gas falling out of the thing. That was a flaw in the 70s. That's probably power steering fluid. So that was a success. Looks like the wheels are about to fall off. I suspect that's what all the noise was. I am missing some lug nuts. There's fluid all over the place. I got to take the camera up close to see where that came from. So let's take a closer look. Okay, so it looks like we got a puddle of water. I thought it was transmission fluid, power steering fluid. Could be, potentially. I mean, this looks like water from the radiator. So we got to start investigating these. So we got to pop the hood and see. I got my boy Jonathan there. He's going to lift up the hood. Really hot. And let's take a look here and see what's going on, where all the water's coming from. Let's do some investigating here. Jonathan, you want to get the flashlight and we can look around and see? I'm not sure. Look up around the radiator. See what you see. Some of the bottom lines. We might have to start it up again. Looks like there's something misted onto the battery. So something is spraying off somewhere. So let's look on this side. So if you look right there, you see how that's all wet? Yeah. What is this? Let me see.
Smell it.
That's water. So something, we're probably gonna have to start the car and see where it's coming from. Because visually I don't see nothing, but it definitely... You hear something?
Like boiling.
Yeah, that's typical. Okay, so I mentioned the car only had 2 lug nuts in the front wheel. I think the back one had 2 or 3. So all around the car, I did not have complete lug nuts. So when I was driving it down the street, it sounded like the wheels are gonna fall off. It made me think of the roadkill episode where one of the wheels fell off. So yeah, so I did get a set of lug nuts and I'm gonna put them on. All right, so I got the lug nuts put on the car, topped off the radiator. Gonna start it up again and see if we can pinpoint where the water leaks are coming out of. So let's get this thing started. You wanna start it up, Jonathan?
What, have me drive it?
No, just start it up. That's all I need you to do.
Well, now it's not leaking any fluid.
noticed is the transmission's not kicking down to second gear. So I was just going slow, but I tried to speed up a little bit and it was staying in first gear. So that's one thing I noticed right away. So I'm gonna check on that. Otherwise, good thing is, doesn't sound like the wheels are gonna fall off. So that was good. Test one, test number two, I should say. So I'm gonna pop the hood right now and see if we can pinpoint any of these leaks in the radiator. So let's get the hood popped open. Got my Dukes of Hazzard door handle here. It's not opening from inside. All right. Well, I don't see anything leaking. I don't know what it was. Again, I'll have to look at a few other things because it did make a mess last time I refilled the radiator. So I'll be investigating that, but so far so good. It's a little groggy. You know, this carburetor needs to be rebuilt. Roy, who was on one of my episodes, he's gonna come in and rebuild the carburetor. We're gonna show that on one of the next coming episodes. So stick around.